All right, let's talk about slab boxes. We're gonna make these things called funky slabs because of the abstract curvy shapes that we can make with it. You're gonna need three things. Your slip container, again, slip is just water and clay mixed together. We use it as a glue. You need your needle tool, and you need some slabs of clay. Again, slabs are just flat rolled out pieces of clay. My slabs today are red clay, but yours might be gray clay, white clay. We're gonna use the same process regardless of the color of your slabs. So let me take these out. You're just gonna need 2 slabs. Right. Get that out of the way. Okay. So I got my 2 slabs, I got my slip container, and my needle tool. Well, my slabs have a lot of texture on them because they went through a slab roller. So the first step that I'm going to do is smooth out my slabs. Right away, a lot of people have a tendency to press down really hard into their clay to smooth it out. You don't need to do that. You'll make your slab thinner and weaker and more unstable, and it might stick to the table. So when I say smooth out, I mean to just drag your finger across the clay to sort of get rid of any texture or bumps that might be on it. If you just drag your hand across the clay rather than press down, you shouldn't make your clay any thinner or stuck to the table. So take a second and do that on both sides of your slab. Sometimes if you have really rough lines, people use slip to smooth things out, sort of like a magic eraser. But if your clay is plastic enough, you won't need the slip to do that. And you don't want to add too much slip because then it could make your clay like floppy and too mushy to use. Especially if it's fresh clay out of the bag. So I'm going to take a second and smooth it out. And just for video's sake, I'm going really fast with my clay. Feel free to take your time with it and really try to get your slab about as perfect as you'd personally like it. All right, next thing that I'm going to do is, while our slab should be approximately the size of our hand when it's like a little bit closed, so you'll see in a second what this is for, but I'm just gonna cut off less than 1/3 of each slab. Let's see. I'd say that's a good amount. And you'll see what we're gonna use these for later on. All right, this is one of my favorite parts, which is to choose the design of your slab. The only criteria is, again, it roughly needs to be the size of your hand, a little bit closed, and the bottom needs to be flat so that it could stand up on a table. When you are drawing out your designs, try not to cut all the way through with your needle tool, because if you decide you don't like your design, now you already cut that piece and you would have to remake your slab to use it again. So I want you to lightly trace the shape you want to use so that if you do make a shape and you're drawing it, oh no, you end up not liking it, you can go back and just lightly drag the clay across with your fingers to get rid of the design, sort of like erase it, like paper and pencil, until you get something that you like. So I'm just going to choose 2 abstract shapes. Again, abstract just means it doesn't really represent anything specific. It's kind of just a fun, enjoyable design. And again, the most important criteria is that you like how it looks. And they don't need, I would say to make them roughly the same height, but they do not need to be the same shape at all. And it doesn't have to include only curves. That's just something that I personally like to do. You can do things with more boxy shapes. Again, it's all up to you and your personal preference. I know for sure that I like these designs, so I'm gonna go ahead with my needle tool and actually cut them out this time just by applying more pressure and sort of cutting them out like a cookie cutter. Again, I'm going super fast because I don't want to make a very long video, but take your time cutting these out so you don't accidentally cut out a line that you didn't trace. Okay. I'm gonna lift them up. If you fully cut around the perimeter of your shape, this should lift up. And I'm just gonna ball up this clay and put it in my bag for later use. While you're working, make sure to keep your bag closed so that the clay does not dry out. All right, so those pieces from earlier, you're gonna need to use them. I'm just gonna like unstick the edges of my slab from the table because it could get a little stuck, so just make sure to save those. Yeah, okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And I would start to plan out which side you want as the outside and inside of your slab. I think I want these as my outside and inside. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so we actually need to make a little compartment inside. So like when we score and slip everything together, it can hold something. So that's actually a vessel. And again, a vessel is just a container that holds something. So what you're gonna want are 3 pieces. Let me actually move this out of the way so you can get a better look. I mean, you might just need one of your strips that you saved, but sometimes people need 2. You can either use a ruler or freehand it if you feel comfortable doing that. But what you're gonna want to do is cut out one rectangle that's, and I'm just gonna measure it here, that is almost the length of the base of your funky shape that you did. And it's sort of gonna sit this way on your piece. And then you're gonna wanna make 2 other squares or rectangles that you can stack up inside of your vase shape to sort of make this compartment. So I'm going to sort of trace this one. So I have 2 of similar height. And by tracing, I just mean placing it on top of my other slab I didn't use yet and cutting around it. So now I have like 2 of the same size. And I'm just taking all my extra clay scraps and putting it inside of my bag. All right, now for the fun part. If you're following along to this, I would take some time, smooth out your square pieces that you just made. Again, do not push these into the table. Just lightly drag your hand across the clay to get rid of any texture. And then we want to now score and slip these together. So to score and slip, you're just gonna add each piece one by one. And it's a very simple 2-step process. So I'm just going to score where I want my piece to go on my slab. You can do it all the way on the bottom. I'll show you what I mean by that. Like you can have your piece go all the way here and have it flush with the bottom of your slab, or you can raise it up a little bit too. It's up to you on where you want to put it. I'm just gonna raise mine up a little bit. So I'm going to score. Remember, you need to do this. If you do not score and slip all of your pieces together, even if it sticks while the clay is wet, when it dries, it is not going to stick together anymore and it will fall apart. So I'm just scoring. I'm adding a little bit of slip on the slab that I'm going to attach it to and onto my piece. And I'm going to press it in. I'm going to lightly press it so it's stuck on there. All right. I'm going to do the same thing now with these 2 pieces. I'm going to score on the side and where I think it's going to stick onto my piece. If your piece is not long enough to hold your rectangle, that's all right. I'll show you some things you can do with that. I'm gonna add slip, and I'm gonna lightly press it. So I'm pressing it into the slab and into this bottom piece. And now I'm gonna take my last piece, and I'm going to score. oh, sorry. Score here and here. And along here. Add my slip. And lightly press it in. I say lightly press it in because we now need to do the last step of score and slip that's not listed in the name, which is to smooth. So actually you do need a wooden tool for this next step, but basically if you can see, here maybe if I lift it you'll get a better look. There are sort of these lines everywhere that we added a piece. So with our needle tool, we need to get rid of these lines inside and out to fully merge our pieces onto the slab. So it's up to you what side of your wooden tool you want to use. But I'm just going to start going through and dragging. Actually, there's a better angles. Maybe I'll flip it upside down so you can see it better. I'm going to take my wooden tool and start merging the clay onto the slab. This is also a very important part so that everything truly is one piece. See, notice how I'm dragging my tool to merge the clay as one. Here, I'll do one side where I merged everything, and I'll show you one side where I did not merge everything so that you can see the difference. Okay. All right. So here's the side where I merged all of my pieces. Everything, and again, even though it's making texture here, if you just lightly drag your hand across, it should get rid of it. But there's no line there anymore on where I added my clay piece. I do need to blend this inside a little bit better. I just keep going over it until I get rid of this line. Okay, so there's that versus this piece right here where the lines are still there. I can still tell that it's a bunch of separate pieces. So over here, see there's no line. Over here there is a line. You want to merge everything so there are no lines. So everything is one clay piece. I know I went over that for a while, but it's a really important step that a lot of people tend to skip. So make sure that you do that. I'm gonna merge it on there. Okay, now I want to add this to, oops, got some old clay on there, my other slab. So the way that I'm going to do this is that I'm going to score this entire side because this is what's going to be touching my other slab that I made. I'm going to place this upside down. You know, be a little careful because your clay is still wet. I'm going to make sure that I placed it in the same spot to where my slab wouldn't wobble later on if it's not at different heights. I'm going to trace where my slab goes, or where my interior goes on the slab. I'm going to score along. And, you know, don't waste your time making the scoring look nice because no one's going to see it anyways. Add some slip. Right. And then I'm going to lightly press our slab box onto this other slab. Wow, this clay is actually super plastic right now. Okay, you press that in there. And right now my slab is leaning downwards because it's like not leather hard, it's still pretty fresh. But once it starts to dry up, it will stand up on its own. Okay, now that we did that, I don't know if you remember, But you still need to go back in there and smooth out all of these lines and merge everything together so that it is truly one piece. So I'm merging that. Just get rid of any lines. If you notice your piece is sticking out, feel free to like press it into the shape of your slab, but that's not really necessary, it's just personal preference. Like over here, you can kind of see our interior sticking out. I just press it in, but again, not really a requirement. All right. So this last step, I'm kind of not gonna do it entirely in the video because it would take like way too long. But now that you have this fully constructed, you know, you've shown it to me, it can stand up on its own, it's fully put together and merged together. And there's a lot of spots I've missed here, but I didn't really fully do this in the video. You're going to, once it can, you know, stand up a little bit more on its own, you're gonna go through and just slightly start dragging your hand and smoothing out the edges, the flat surfaces, the sides of the interior you just attached to your slabs. Basically, you want to go through and make it as smooth as possible and as professional looking as possible, so that when it dries, there's no really any hard bits that turn sharp or pointy. And honestly, I think pieces that have someone that took the time to really smooth everything out end up with really nice like glazed finishes in the kiln. So smooth things out. Once it looks to your liking, just run it by me so I can give you the thumbs up on whether or not it is secured together well enough for the kiln. If you're at that point, and notice how my two funky slabs are not the same shape, they can be different shapes. You're gonna write your name on the bottom so we can remember whose is whose with your needle tool. And then you can put it on the cart to dry. And you get sort of this like abstract, fun looking vase that does not flop around because it's not dry yet, with like a little compartment in the middle. And you can put whatever you'd like in here. You know, pencils, items, plants, whatever it may be. And that is the funky slab tutorial. All right.